Welcome, everyone. I hope you're having a good day wherever you may be. Forgive my eye patch. I'm preparing for cataract surgery very soon and have drops in this particular eye. It can barely see out of the other one, so I'm coming to you rather blind today. Welcome to the podcast. This is Robert McDowell, poet, and this is the podcast version of Read a Friend's Heart. I want to speak a little about today, following up my print newsletter yesterday about George Hitchcock, who died 2 days ago in 2010, so 15 years ago. Those of you who have read the article I wrote already have some information about him. I thought I would simply add a few things and read a poem or two and remember him further, because he's very hard to forget. I'm sorry I have to keep adjusting this eye patch in my relative blindness. You notice that I'm also wearing my scientific coat, and that is because I've been thinking a lot lately about life being a science project. I frequently have science projects in my refrigerator. You may have them too. And that's a good metaphor. It's an apt metaphor for life, is it not? As we are constantly experimenting with how we live, the way we live, the disappointments and the surprises and the successes that come into our lives. We are constantly weighing, balancing the scales. Equanimity. It's a wonderful skill. It frequently comes about, or we're most conscious of it perhaps after meditating. Walking meditations are very good for thinking about equanimity, especially as one gets older and has a tendency to fall over more often. Teetering. So I thought that my scientific coat would be appropriate for this particular day. George Hitchcock was a man who was very interested in science. His grandfather founded the renowned now biology program and department at the University of Oregon in Eugene. And George remembered as a child spending many, many happy days and hours in his grandfather's laboratory, looking at specimens and asking endless questions. A habit he developed early under his grandfather's tutelage, and which he developed more all through his life and gifted to all of his students, thousands of them, through the University of California at Santa Cruz and elsewhere. He was extraordinary in every way. He was a big man, about 6'4", 220, 230. He got bigger and then smaller as he aged until he was quite frail in his last 5 years or so before his passing. Longevity was in his genes. His mother, and he was very proud of this, but his mother went around the world, sailed around the world by herself in her mid-80s. She was quite the adventurer, and obviously also a feminist, which George also inherited. His poetry is sometimes overlooked because he did so many other things. But in the introduction to this book, One Man Boat, which is a collection of George's poetry, fiction, creative nonfiction, and plays, that was edited several years ago by Joseph Bednarik, Mark Jarman, and myself at Storyline Press. This book is still available. I gave the Amazon link to it in yesterday's, or the newsletter from 2 days ago. I suppose it was 2 days ago now, yes. In any event, I thought I would read a couple of the poems. In the introduction to this book, Philip Levine, the great American poet and Pulitzer Prize winner, who published a very early and now highly collectible book of poems with George at Kayak Press, the book is called Red Lion, said in this introduction that George was equal to the best poets of his generation, including himself in that. And I think that's true. We sometimes neglect looking at his poetry because we have 64 issues of the legendary Kayak magazine to read, and we have his plays, of course, his novels, short stories, all of these activities in print that sometimes push the poetry aside, but shouldn't. His poetry is, like the man, entertaining, surprising, startling. He is always the rebel. And I'll try to read one poem with one eye. This is called Interrogation. And it's from his 1979 book, From Mirror on Horseback. Where do you come from? The belly of the parenthesis. Who are your relatives? The grandfather of shadows, the dog inside the razor blade. What is your passport number? 3. Only 3. Always 3. For a total of 3. Nationality? Clandestine. Place of residence? At present? Yes, at present. The menagerie of yeast. And proposed? Somewhere in the sea. Please state your occupation. I buy and repair ripples. Repeat that, please. I restore straw. Your means of support? The keel, the garlic, the two-headed wave. What are your plans if accepted? To build holes and promote it? Holes within holes within holes. That's I believe, a very representative poem for George, who is a mystery, is mysterious and loves the mysterious. The interrogative structure of the poem certainly fits the subject matter. There is a questioner, a stern questioner, a prosaic questioner, and then we have George's, or the speaker in the poems, enigmatic answers, many of them enigmatic, I suppose. But it's a wonderful poem, and here's a second one from the same collection. This is called, let's see here. Oh, I'm sorry. I've had to turn a page. This is called The Hero. He stopped in the first town, just inside the emperor's walls. He saw the foot about to crush him, the gallows they'd built. For dreams he pulled his hat down, low, and walked into his father's. He had second thoughts about swords. They'd been left in the plaza, heirlooms, something he'd rather do without. He was built to stand. Perpendicular to lightning, but the world was horizontal. His disciples hid in bells. They put on coats of stone. You'll find him in a whisper, glued to the bottom of a trumpet. What he feels about it, I don't know. He never told me. It's been left up to the author to fill in the blanks any way he can, but there's no way to translate the apple tree growing from his forehead. Certainly a surreal flourish at the end. We would all be uncomfortable, I think, most of us, with the prospect of an apple tree growing out of someone's forehead. That is George Hitchcock. Whimsical, enigmatic, mysterious, rebellious, always fiercely independent and free. He taught freedom. He believed in freedom. He defended freedom everywhere. Famously, he was hostile. He was a hostile witness before the House Un-American Activities when he was called before the committee and gave testimony, and he eventually walked out on them, calling the entire process a great bore. His response, or his reaction with the committee members, was so interesting. It made the national evening news on the day of his appearance before the committee. That's all I have for you today. I thank you for taking the time to be with me and listen to a couple of poems and listen to a little bit about the life of George Hitchcock. I encourage you to read my newsletter from yesterday, and I look forward to being back with you again soon. Meanwhile, please be well, everyone, and success with the science project that is your life. Thank you.